What's up, guys? It's a bonus episode.
Bonus.
John's out. We have Luke from Rangeline Homes hopping on
Bonus
unexpectedly.
Luke?
Yeah, bonus Luke unexpectedly with us. He's thinking about hiring a PM. We give him all the good, the bad, some advice, some good advice, bad advice. I don't know. We give him all the advice.
Just advice. Who
Advice.
the hell knows if it's right or wrong? Just make it up.
But I think we talked him into it.
Yeah. So
I
it's
think
right.
he was already there.
You got to say it's right now. If not, he's like, you idiots gave me the terrible advice.
John's like, he was already there. We're taking credit.
Oh, yes, of course.
Bonus range line.
Cool, man. But you asked me about PMs.
Yes.
So what are you thinking about doing? You making a jump?
I really want to hire this guy, and he's really qualified and super eager, super hungry, super motivated, very detailed. I've checked his references, but I don't feel as prepared as I should be to hire a PM. So my questions are going to be kind of in regards to, like what sort of preparation do you guys have for when I guess since I've got all three of you, what have you done to prepare to hire people on? Like, do you have, employee training, handbooks, all that sort of stuff for a lot of the guys learning on the job? Are they shadowing you for a little while, that sort of thing? I'd love to hear how you guys have gone about, hiring project managers or supervisors and working them into project managers.
Looks like I'm out.
Yeah, Tyler did it.
I'll catch you guys next Tuesday.
Nick's just gonna hire everybody.
I'm gonna let John take this first.
Why? No, we're hiring a guy right now, and so Benny's been interviewing for him, and he's gonna be our highest paid employee besides the two owners, but it's super close. Like, when everyone says that at a certain point in your business you're gonna hire somebody that makes more money than you, we are right there.
Really?
It's super close, and it's not so much in the efforts of hiring somebody to have that person. That it's more to be able to pull away a little bit and have a little bit more security. Where I feel like, who do you have? What do you have for employees now? Is it just you?
It's just me right now, and I've got a guy who I've used for a little while as a subcontractor. That's it, and he's just kind of been a site kind of supervisor, and I don't know.
A set of eyes and ears for you.
Set of eyes and ears. That's exactly right.
Yeah, and why not pick that kid up full time and have a super instead of going right for the PM? What are you trying to look for?
Well, I think this guy would be trained into a PM. He was basically a site superintendent before, and I think he's highly skilled and highly motivated, but will come at a pretty decent cost.
So, how'd you pull that away? Did you pull that away from just his resume? Did you walk him through the site and kind of see where his eyes rolled?
So he used to work for a custom home builder up in the mountains, and got a girlfriend, got married, and didn't want to travel that far. He found me via, I think, Brad Levitt through LinkedIn, and he was like, I just want to work for this guy. And so then I took him out to coffee, and then I told him that my wife and I would take him out to dinner, and so we took him out to dinner the other night and met his wife and just kind of got to know them a little bit more, and called references this week. And he's so motivated to work for me, and he's like, man, you can pay me $50,000 if you want. He's like, I don't even care. I just want to work for you. And I was just like, oh my gosh. He's overqualified, but I feel like we could move him up and into more of a project management role.
Tyler.
What are your concerns? Like, what's your initial like
why did I ask to talk to John?
Yeah.
Can you see what one that is? Sorry.
I don't feel, I guess.
What kind of work do you have? I guess I'm going to go about the numbers.
All right. So I got like 4 homes lined up for next year.
Wow. Look at you.
Yeah.
Congrats, dude.
Yeah.
Straight slaying it.
Yeah. Some really, really good, nice projects.
Because usually you've been doing what? One a year, and then
one
at a time, and then it rolls. As you close one out, you start another. So there's 2 in the mix, and then maybe a couple of renos over the times we've talked. That's
so I need somebody.
I would I would almost say you need a couple.
Yeah.
I mean, you've locked up those deals, so now you're stressing out that you're going to be stretched too thin from the family.
Yeah, and I want to be prepared because I don't think they're going to start till late spring, early summer next year, and I want to be able to kind of get them on some jobs. We'll close out the house we have now.
And not bring him in and introduce him like, hey, here's the new guy.
Here's the new guy. Here's a house. Take it on. Yeah, I mean, I just would love to kind of phase him in. But I think, Nick, like what you're asking, I think, you know, I don't feel as prepared to take somebody on, but I know I can't lose him. So,
but what? So, I went about this a couple different ways. I've promoted within, and then I've hired project managers, and you know, as John will say, it's like, yeah, I oftentimes I just I hire in spurts, but you know, I do.
Sorry, I don't know how to work this.
I do.
He's messing with the background.
Okay. I don't think
he's currently in like Mario land right now.
It's the yellow brick road.
Oh, and then his face disappears.
I think my computer's too old.
But it's because I had the same concerns, Luke, and I continue to, as you know, especially as I hire up people, right, that are closer to what I'm doing each day. But I do I try to ignore my fear a little bit in the sense of like I know what this is doing for the company. I know, yeah. I mean, maybe I don't voice it, but you know, I still have fears in doing it, and I know I have to make things work, and I know this isn't going to be just, you know, it's not going to be completely thought through when they start, and you know that works for and against me. And, you know, against me in the sense that, you know, I had one project manager that, you know, was more recently, but he chose to go back to his other job. And, you know, to be completely honest, I think that I hired him almost too early. We're in the middle of COVID. Things are kind of like a little whirly right now, but we're doing a lot of preparing for 2021. We too have a handful of new builds coming up, like really great year coming up. Yeah. And my thought there was, all right, I'm going to hire him and let him get his feet wet and just really like tiptoe him into what we're doing and have the opportunity to catch him up to all these, you know, micro things that we deal with on a day to day. But it did. In my opinion, I think I brought him in too soon, and it was and he was really hoping for to be, you know, further along and having more responsibility right off the bat, because he came from having a lot of responsibility. And you know, the other side of it is, you know, his other job offered him an awesome opportunity to come back. You know, it worked out. It you know, it is what it is, right? Yeah. But the other side of it, it's like, you know, Nick, who's one of my PMs, you know, he chased me down. He sounds like a lot like your guy. I think he lived in New York at the time. We were at the Kukin Brothers Expo. He drove down to New Jersey. He walked up to me and said, "I'm Nick." I'm like, "Hey, Nick, nice to meet you." He's like, "No, I'm the guy that's been asking you for a job."
I'm Nick. I'm the Nick.
And, you know, that was, you know, I'm like, damn, this kid really wants to work for me. And it was the same thing. I sat down and we chatted, and I was like, you know what? He was going to be my first project manager. I didn't have any, it was all carpenters at the time. So I feel like he's the most relatable here, but I believed in him because that, you know, he had that eagerness to want to work for us and understood what we were after. And we were at a point where we were starting to tip into larger scale projects and needing a project manager. And not being prepared to have a project manager was a very real feeling I had. Yeah. But at the same time, I knew that with his experience and with our growth, we could build it together. And I think that's where you're at right now. It's like,
I mean, it sounds exactly. I mean,
you have to trust. Like you're not going to build all these processes. You can't. Yeah. I don't believe so. You're not going to sit down and build this out and then be like, all right, this is how you're going to run the job. It's you bring him in now, and if you can cover the cost of him,
Yeah.
You know, of with what's on your plate, the fact of the fact that he can be part of the growth and the planning for 2021 will be, in my opinion, instrumental to his success and your success.
Yeah.
And you're genuinely working together. I think the biggest let me correct that. I know the biggest failures that I've had and we've had as a company is because of the lack of planning and the lack of involvement during the early phases of our projects. Hands down. Where it's, you know, I'm the one preparing the job, I sell the job, I price the job, I schedule the job, I contract the job, I do everything, and then all of a sudden it's like, all right, here, you guys are going there next week. And they're like, what? And I'm like, you have a week to do this. And they're like, I haven't even looked at the plans yet. You know, and that's like, that's a little bit exaggerated, but it's the same thing. It's like you're getting into this, it sounds like you're in this growth spurt, and to have someone that can be at a project management level, you know, to help systemize this and help build these processes now and go into it in taking his knowledge and frankly his eagerness to do this is going to be really helpful to you. And I think in a large way, he's going to almost be, he's more than a project manager at that point. Yeah. And I think that's probably, you know, but that doesn't mean he has to. I'm not saying that he has to be. I don't want to come off wrong here. I'm not saying he has to be compensated like that. But I think what I mean by that is I think he wants to be part of that. He wants to be part of the growth, and he wants to be a project manager, and he wants to be. You know, he believes in what you guys are doing, and he's excited about it. And getting him in the role, and you know, again, repeating myself. Have him be part of building that process allows you then to recruit someone else. Yeah. And you know, and then you know, whatever, maybe it's a couple of years from now, he becomes kind of senior PM and he oversees the PMs that you hire to run, like John said, multiple.
But I love that. The problem is that, you know, if you're taking on 2 projects a year and that's the kind of the growth path, then that makes complete sense that you guys will have time to pull away and, you know, work on those processes. It sounds very similar to the way Benny and I started, and you're going to take on 4 projects that are good sized projects, and now you're worried about to Tyler says, how do I give 100% to each client, each project? So I'm going to bring somebody on that's qualified. With 4 products coming online and you finishing off what you have, the odds of it having enough time for you to dial in these processes and not have time to put out the fires on the job site, as people would say, I can understand your pain, and I feel like this is exactly what I'm doing right now. Is that we've got, you know, 2 guys already we've hired within. You know, we hired them as assistant, you know, product managers at the time, and with that meaning, you have to define some sort of roles and responsibilities. You know, where does it end and where do you start, and you know, what part of it do you have to take on and make sure that you're not going to give up. I love what Craddock had, you know, on the podcast, Kevin, where it was like, hey, I still make every client meeting. I'm never giving that up. And that was a huge thing. And it wasn't like I was debating on doing it. It's like, do I need to make all of them? And I love the fact that he solidified that fact that it was like, you know what, I do my meetings bi-weekly, so that way I'm always at a meeting. Maybe it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but it's a different project every 2 weeks. And I love that fact. So having that little process in place, but also knowing like, hey, how do you bill? You know, they're gonna have to understand the job site. That's gonna be their bread and butter, is job site, and then knowing that they're gonna be able to talk to a client without you being like, dude, don't put your foot in your mouth. Yeah. Like, just please represent the company in the right way, because you don't know that person. You're just starting out as a friendship role. So it's I look at it like, what am I gonna do? That way they get to learn all my subs. There's, you know, some subs want to get paid right away. Some guys are going to ask to get paid and they haven't even invoiced. Stuff that you've let go, you know, and you just roll with it. Now it's like, how that's going to create chaos. You know it because you've been doing it. It's all you know. So how do you do it where, to kind of Nick's point, but I also worry about my worry is everyone goes, how am I going to be the best boss for this new employee and crush these jobs? I worry about how am I going to take a perfectly, uncorrupted person and then corrupt them and make them not 100% usable on a job site. Children. Yeah, it's like this person's untainted. Like they're completely raw, and you can shape them any which way. So if they get screwed up in 2 years, guess what? It's 100% me, the way I operate, the lack of processes, and what I think is organic, people will call chaotic.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but I feel like you're hiring someone to take work off your plate, right? To make your life easier, to be able to handle this workload. But it's somebody new. You've never had another person like this in your company. So I don't think like sending them their separate way and having them handle one project and you three is the right move. It's going to be like, hey, this is how I can handle these 4 with me having these roles and responsibilities on these 4 projects and him having these roles and responsibilities on these projects until you guys both learn what works and what doesn't work and start developing those systems, and then he can kind of move off to his own stuff. But I feel like it's just going to be, you're going to have to fit him in to take things off your plate that he's fully capable of handling on each of those projects, rather than like, because if you're trying to manage your jobs and then you want him to be managing something separate, that's going to be so much harder when you don't have any of those systems in place.
But it's also, it's how do you want it? Like we've done it where we have overlapping management, meaning if I'm there in the morning, then that means the other person, John or whoever it is, or Ben's at the other project during that morning. And then I get off my meeting, then we switch. So there's always constant supervision and eyes from our company on a job site. Is that going to be the process for you? Or are you going to hit one job site, make sure it's 100%, and then go see their job site? I mean, I like to start people off as an assistant, whether it's assistant super, assistant PM. That way they know they have a little bit of leeway, that they're not committed to that project, because that label, meaning let's say I hire them as a PM. That PM, that means that they're doing all the client relation, they're doing all the billing between the client and our company.
I don't think they'll jump right into that. I think it'd be more, that's part of the reason why I wanted to hire them on now, kind of have them shadow me for a couple of months, and start the development of these projects to see what it's like, as we develop projects from, the initial client meeting to site development, to architects, to structurals, to, scheduling and all that sort of stuff. I feel like it's also a good opportunity to kind of have them shadow me and we work together. And even if it's just mulling over the plans that we have for the current house that we're doing, and we finish that one out strong, and he helps, kind of complete that one. I don't know.
That's what I feel like it's going to be advantageous for you to have almost you guys attacking all 4 of these together. And then just creating what he can handle of those 4 projects, not necessarily even like, I'm going to do mornings, you're going to do afternoons, or he's just going to contribute the same roles and responsibilities to all 4 of these and still be involved, and just almost like, hey, I can handle these 4 on my own. What can I give to him that he's going to be along for this process, see what we're doing. You'll kind of run into each other in some places and then realize there's too much space in others, and like naturally develop a system that works for you. But I feel like you both need to have all of your eyes and ears on all 4 of these, until the experience is there to be like, all right, you can start handling things on your own.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I mean, the other part is like when we hire guys, I usually give them base responsibilities, like overall site appearance and cleanliness.
Yeah.
Porta johns, dumpsters, all that stuff that's low hanging fruit that honestly, it's just deliveries. Like I don't want to be the contact anymore for Riverhead, for the plumbing supplies, all that stuff. So you're basically, let's just say entry level is a coordinator, that you're coordinating that job site. So, and I do it where to this level that, if you're going to be at that job site in the morning, I'm going to be over here. I need you to text me in the morning who's on site. I just, not that I'm being a freak, is that I want to just know who's going to be there. That way we keep a pulse on what's happening. And that way I don't want to show up at 10 and then have assumed that you called the mason that was supposed to be here today and you didn't. And and to Tyler's point, I worry that when you try, and I've done this, is, we talked about this in a couple podcasts before, softball stuff. I set up a lot of stuff, and then people, you're trying to make their life easier. It's like a kid's. Like, I want to make his life easy, but then in the hindsight, I'm like, you know what? Some adversity would be good. So
Yeah.
let's, you know what, I know like Hunter, I can get a landscaper to do the leaves. Guess what I rented? I rented a walk behind blower. So that way you can understand what it feels like to move all these leaves. And, so I guess my point is that you have to show them the way, but also make sure that they're taking responsibility. To Tyler's point is that you're almost dangling out a few things like, oh, you know what I want to do? I want to jump on window schedule this week. What I try and do every Monday is when I'm on a job site, I'm like, I want to tackle this, this, and this. I'm saying that because I want to what things they'll take away.
Mm-hmm.
You get me? Like, so system wise, I have everything in Dropbox. So every project has a Dropbox, and it has everything from window schedules to, permit sets. Like, I guess the simplest thing, since you don't have an employee, is like, you get a revised set of permits and you just put them in. You might want to put permit set like in boldface on the folder for what drawings you're using. Yeah. It's the little things like that, and like invoicing, like we've been trying to do a system where, if someone's on site that week, then make sure that you ask them for an invoice that week. Try and be proactive, so that way you're not gonna not only deal with the site stuff that's happening, but also then the flip side is, hey, I need to get paid for that. As that new employee, do they want to be burdened with that? Do you want them to be burdened with that? So it's like, hey, you know what? I haven't seen an invoice from you. Can you get that out this week? Send it to me so I can approve it, blah, blah. Because I want my guys to know numbers like I do. Like I joke around. It's like, what do you think that patio's going to cost? And like in the beginning, they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, no, what do you think that patio's going to cost? And they'd be like, $2,000. I'm like, wrong, $2,785. Like, it's like, so but you want them to know, dialed in, meaning if I had the opportunity to teach them everything they need to know, so that way they could run the job as if they could leave. That's what I want. I want them to know numbers inside and out. Where like I had the new kid that's assistant super, and he's like, yeah. I'm like, get a new plumber for us for this. And so it's like, we have a powder room in the garage, and it's 600 feet away. And he gets me the plumbing quote, and he's like, $11,000. I'm like, does that sound high to you? He's like, I have no idea. I'm like, then maybe you should figure out what's high to you. Like, just in general, like, you should have a pulse on this if you're going to stay in as a super, assistant PM. Yeah. Knowing numbers is key, because if a client catches you on site and goes, you know what, this guy's slow. Well, you know what, he's a steal, because that guy was $11,000. This guy was $3,000. Like just to kind of have an idea on what they can talk about. Because for us, if someone asks you how much is the overhead and profit, what's it paying for? If you answer that wrong, guess what? You've now opened yourself up to having that cut. But if anybody on your company can answer these questions and dial it in, that's what you want. Like, I loved it the other day. We had Ben, myself, Trevor, and John in the project, and Ben and I were kind of budgeting out this project in the South End, and Ben's got this number in there. And I remember yelling, I'm like, John! And he jumps out a window. I'm like, how much is floor heat for the last project? He's like, $1,750. That's just materials. And Ben had like $750 in there. And I was like, but that's what I want. Like, that was like out the window of our project we were finishing up. Just kind of, that's how we want to flow. So it's, I guess, not so much having processes in place, but knowing what you have for expectations for this person, whether it's 6 months, a year. And yeah, I'm foolish about writing those things down, because I want to know. It's the same as coaching youth hockey. I don't go into next week's practice trying to figure out how I have to solve what happened in last week's game. I'm not reacting to what I want to do. I have a full year plan in place that I want to then evolve that. Otherwise, that person's not getting the growth they want. And then a year from now, you might be accomplishing projects, but they haven't grown.
Totally.
And that's a huge flaw in what we do. And we get caught up in, you know what, we did this project, this was awesome. And yeah, you made it to A to B, but it sucked. But yet we're going to glaze over that, and then they move on. And they could be 3 projects in, 3 years in, and they have been going through the same chaos, because that's what you're going through, and you're growing. Yeah. But how do you grow?
I mean, the last thing you want to do is grow and have projects and all that sort of stuff, but not be able to grow these people and have them be disgruntled.
I mean, we've pledged to all of them. We've pledged to all of them, or lack of process. And you can't blame it on growth. It goes out the window at a certain point where you're like, well, we're growing. All right, well,
great.
Like, when does that stop? Because most likely I went from 2 products a year to 4. If I execute these well, no one's turning the spigot off.
Right.
It's only going to get better. So, I mean, it's stuff like that I work on. And then it's really understanding, engaging. Why did you meet with him and his wife and have dinner with your wife because she's your sounding board.
Yeah.
So you wanted her to meet him.
She's better at like reading people and understanding people and kind of that filter as to whether or not, because ultimately it's a big
too
commitment
early
for us.
to trust those two alone together, right? You got to keep an eye out.
I guess my question was, why not have the missus come to the job site and walk the job site with the three of you? Because I mean, I put it in that environment. Like, I like to have the individuals come to the job site so I can see what they're looking at, see what they. There's something to be said about their eyes, you know, and what they're looking at, what they look at too long, and go, what do you think of this? And if they're open to asking questions while they're at that site, like, what are you doing with this? Like, how does this work? I've never done it this way. That's going to open you up to, are they going to ask questions at the right time? You know, like, I make sure to tell the guys that, hey, ask as many as you want. Like, Nick and I have talked about this in the past, where you have people and they're like, oh, well, you know, you're so busy. It's like, that can, without knowing it, you're actually, you know, almost interfering with the growth of your employee and the job site, because yeah, I'm busy, but I still have enough time for you. Like, to answer something like this so it doesn't, you know, blow up and be a huge wildfire on the job site. So I think having those systems in place that, like, where invoices go, like having them chase down, you know, workman's comp and liability, you know, what's the low hanging fruit that you can break off, and making that list. And I bet you if you made that list, it would start at 5 and turn into 25 in like a minute. And then you'd be able to highlight the top 6 in yellow and be like, all right, this is my first thing. See how fast they pick that up, and then immediately be able to feed that energy. But if you're just kind of, well, all right, then you find them hovering, and you haven't fed that again, then guess what? Then they know that the honeymoon period is now either started or over, and now they can kind of coast. It's, how do you keep them from coasting? Because everyone's going to do it.
Yep.
I want to stop you real quick, John. Like, the one I think back about, you know, making roles and responsibilities, and I think, you know, at least for me, that was a daunting task. It's like, I don't know what the hell to put on that list.
Yeah.
I don't write it. I'm not gonna lie to you.
And what that's what I'm getting at. It's like, I want, you know, Luke, like, it's, you know, for me, I looked it up. I was like, what, you know, what's the definition, and what other roles and responsibilities, and what are the, you know, and broke it down. And, you know, I started with that just so I could have a jumping off point, because I made the list without that support, and it was like this insane 52-page list. I'm like, yeah, he should be able to do all that. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, yeah.
52 pages.
I mean, I'm sorry, 52 items, whatever.
52
pages.
Down for a month. I just wrote a novel.
Here's your book.
Jump in.
Sorry,
no, but this is all so new, and if you haven't had somebody on board,
right,
you're making it up as is, but you're really making it up if you haven't gone through this before, regardless if it's just hiring an employee, a sub, whatever it may be. I just feel like for a lot of this, it's going to be, hey, I'm looking at this job. What are my duties for tomorrow? What are my duties for this week, for next month? And being like, what can he handle that's consistent from job to job, that he'll be able to basically take care of and take off my plate, that it's going to free me up some. And I think it's going to be slow, and it's going to be a progression. And I think some things will work, some things won't work. And I think that, you know, that's just the way it's going to be until everyone gets on their feet and you sort out, and he kind of sees how this everything pans out. And then eventually you guys will be able to become somewhat independent of each other. But I think for right now, so much of it is going to be you guys tackling both of this, tackling it together, and just freeing up your workload.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually give a shout out, because Van Dyke talked about this at the Cape Cod Lumber event, and I took a photo of it, and I knew I saved it. And he broke it down. It's, you determine the job title, the 1 to 3 word title that clearly conveys the level of position, which would be project manager, right? And then you write a job description. It's the one sentence that describes the overall purpose of the position. Define the responsibilities, one sentence description of the broad goals for the position, and then you list the duties, the day-to-day tasks required by the position. Now, I use that as the jumping off point, and kind of Google searching. It's like, all right, what is a project manager? What are their responsibilities, their duties, and the job description? Having that format helps refine things and not allow you to go down this rabbit hole of like all of these things you need him to do. And it's really concise and allows you guys to have that jumping off point. It's like, hey, the broad description of what, I need help with. And then from there, like Tyler said and John said, it's like, you evolve and you start picking off the low hanging fruit of, hey, can you handle this? Can you do this? Can you handle that? And it evolves into, the extension of you, right? And allows you to then, peel your focus back, like John said, like not wanting to be on the call list for the lumber being dropped, on site. It's like that goes to him now.
Yeah. And I love what Sean's got there. That's in the offer letter. After that, it doesn't do me much good.
But it sets
the cutting edge. No, I think it sets something.
But for you, not necessarily for them. It was for me. It was so I understood like what I needed to go into that, because not having a clear understanding of what the responsibilities and duties were.
But that's a bigger problem, because how do you teach if you don't know what you're going to give up? So if you don't know how to manage a project and give up certain parts of it, then how do you teach someone to do that? Or is it just going to be complete chaos? I guess my point is that you want to give up a certain list of things. So that way you hire the next person that's below them. Let's say it's a superintendent. How does that person that you hired first know what to give up? Or do you have to then write that again? My goal is that when you hire somebody in that, let's say, assistant PM role, and you delegate the first couple things like site cleanliness, all that stuff, when you hire that superintendent, that person knows what to give up again. Like, hey, you know what I had to do in the beginning? I had to do porta johns, dumpsters, site cleanliness, overall appearance, all that stuff. And that's the first thing they give up. And then to me, how do you, like, someone will put together a list of all the contacts that they have on a company or a project, and like, hey, here's all my contacts. How I do it is I do have guys kind of shadow me and understand what's going on, and they stay on that job while I go leave. But as they meet people, before I leave that site, I then text them contacts for like the plumber, electrician, HVAC. So that way the people they just met, now they have those 3 contacts. I'm not giving them 150 contacts to then pull from. I've been at companies where we did that. And it's like, well, is it Jim or Jay? Fuck, I'll text both of them. Like, how do I do this? And then, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? And then it's, depending on the level of drawings, what's the details? How do you want to do stuff? So yeah, I think to run through an entire project, start to finish, is key to have you walk through with them and go, hey, it's certain rough stages. I say to the guys, hey, I want to make sure we're walking through this project not as it's getting built, but thinking about it as it was going to get lived in and looking at it that way. Like that, it's really tough to give that perspective. And over the years, it's become easier for me to do, but how do you instill that right away? That way they understand what's going on, and then forecasting 2 weeks out. So that's the simplest thing I would say, is create a list of the things that you want to give up that's easy, low-hanging fruit, that they can maintain the project. Yeah. Which is stock. Making sure that the next people are going to be there, and that's having a 2-week outlook. You might be able to do that on Build a Trend, and then ideally, if they're doing that 2-week outlook, that means every Friday they're calling for people. That's going to be, making sure that they're going to be there the following week. That's easy stuff that you can give up, but then you can check in on a Monday and be like, hey, I have blah, blah, blah here, right? And they go, well, I didn't call so-and-so. Well, then that's a problem.
But that's the thing about all of this, is that he needs stuff taken off his plate. He needs an extra set of hands. He needs more manpower. And you learning this process of teaching someone else, you're going to be learning just as much as this person is right now. So I think you're going to have your hands so full with the amount of work and then trying to get through this entire process that you can't overwhelm yourself with trying to legitimize this and structure this up front. I think that you got to bite off a little at a time and take whatever you can off your plate and let this person chomp at the bit to learn from you and kind of see what you're doing. But you can't, if you're going to try and manage these 4 jobs and then figure out how to teach somebody how to do that at the same time when it's the first person you've had on board, you're going to drive yourself up a wall. It's going to be impossible. Like, you just need to focus on getting done what you guys can get done, conveying as much information as you can without blurring and skewing the ideas and concepts that you're trying to get across to them, and then tell them that they're just going to ask questions when you have questions. If you don't understand something, be present and everything else, but they're going to have to learn on their own some, because there's no way that you're going to be able to handle teaching somebody and managing somebody else at the same time until they get on their feet, and then it's really going to start becoming easier. But I think so much up front is going to be you keeping your head above water and keeping them busy and lightening your load and just constantly conveying to them that they need to be present, engaged, ask questions, and think ahead as to how they can help you.
I mean, what's your goal with the kid?
My goal would be able to have him run 1 to 2 homes in place of me, because essentially I'm acting as owner PM. So
like, over how long of a time frame would you be
for him to finally be able to do that?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it would be a couple years.
Okay.
At least.
That makes sense.
I mean, and I was going to mention, so one of the things that I do with all my clients is to have an expectations meeting before we start, just to kind of let them know what's happening, what they can expect, dirt on the driveway, all sorts of stuff if they've never had a project happen.
Walk me through that. I'm a client.
Oh.
Hey, Luke. You start next week?
Real quick, hold on. So one of my things was going to be to make sure I set those expectations with this potential new hire, like you're saying, Tyler. I mean, really, just kind of let them know what it's going to be like, what my, I don't have everything figured out, and I don't have the job handbook for him, but like you guys have all said throughout this conversation, just kind of, I don't know.
I just think it's going to be super overwhelming with all the work and then bringing somebody on. But you're going to be learning just as much as this person's going to be learning. And I think
you have to have a resource that everyone can turn to. Because if he's at a meeting with a client and someone's calling him, like, hey, do you have that updated set of drawings? Like, you have to have some sort of a baseline plan on like how documents are going to get stored within the company, so that way they're accessible when you're not accessible.
Sure, but I feel like so much of these little things are going to happen real time, and you're going to have to implement. Like, there's certain things that, you can get on track, but all of this is going to be a first-time experience for him where it's like, oh, shit, this is how I've done it on every single build. Now I have somebody that I want to delegate responsibilities to. How, at this point, real time, are we going to sort this out, figure that out? And then the next time, you're developing that process, you're developing that system. I just can't imagine with everything that's going to be on your plate and not having a hire before, not having somebody do this. Like, John, you're looking at it from 20 years of managing jobs where, at some point when you first started, you didn't have that in place. You at some point were like, oh, hey, I got somebody else here who doesn't know that this is the permit set. I need to label this the permit set. And no matter how much we overwhelm you with potential scenarios, it's like, you got to walk through this. It's just like everything else. Like, you got to walk through this step. You got to live this and experience this and develop those systems a lot of times real time.
I've been working on developing, so I use co-construct instead of builder trend at this point, but I do have a pretty decent system going with them at this point, and I think it'd be relatively easy to kind of move him into that and show him how I've been using it, and I don't know, I'm sure he can help out with all that as well.
I think having a schedule is key. Builder trend is key because you can see it come up on the daily logs that oh, you know what, dude, I love the fact that a lot of the projects going ahead of schedule. So I'm like, wait a minute, you're telling me I'm 2 weeks ahead of schedule right now? So it's a nice thing to see, and it gives yourself a little bit of float, but and plus the selections come up. If you've done the the lead work into it, where you can be, hey, I put all these selections in, and then it just emails you and tells you, hey, this is due. That's kind of a cliff notes to what you need, and that's a huge thing. I just find that I get a lot of emails, and then if I don't categorize them all and put them all, like every single estimate I get, I put into Dropbox, but it's under it's called the subtree, and then it's every division 1 through 16, and then plumbing's in there. Everything's in that subtree, and those just I have like I guess my point is if I were to take the next 2 months for you, I would put together, like, I'd really dial in my Dropbox, so that way it's I have like active projects, I have post construction, then I have like pre-construction, I have closeout, I have all those, so that way they're not going in and seeing all the dirty mess of the last 3 years of projects that they don't need to see. It's the 3 active ones that they have for you, and it's simple housekeeping for you to be able to do that, but then dial into it and have schedule, have an insurance folder, making it easy, so that way if you go, hey, do me a favor, when they want to pick something else up, or like, what's been killing me is I keep having to chase down people's insurance. That's that little tip of the iceberg where I can get that, and they've seen that folder in Dropbox that has it, and then they can dump it in there. Otherwise, it's like, all right, so what do I do? Do I ask them to mail it to us? So it's really making it hard for them to try and pick stuff off your plate. Opposed, like, I've had a meeting with my guys, like, just take stuff, try it, and make it happen. But without having those outlets for them to deposit the stuff in to make it happen, then it's really chaos. Or like specs, or maybe sitting down and creating a template for paint schedule or grout schedule, or all the stupid things that totally get missed, that when you get into that finished phase when it's kind of chaos. And Tyler, I agree with you, but it's trying to have a little bit of a leg up on that chaos, so when it does happen, you have something of a resource to kind of pull back towards and be like, all right, well, I have this down, this is the template, and you save it, so you have a general documents folder that's like paint schedules, or like even job site signage, where it's like, no shoes, it's all, finished floors are in process. Having all those as already in there, which you may already have, but just organizing them, so that way you can print them at Staples, and just telling people what happens. Like right now, my guys don't print stuff on their own. They're like, hey, can you print this? I'm an enabler. And I feel like we all are in a way, and it's how do I prevent myself from enabling them to always keep asking me for shit? And it's my own fault. But it's like, I keep going to Staples and picking up stuff, and I said to John, I go, you can email Staples just as easily as I do. Like, they're right there. The dude's super cool. Just because he knows who I am and already rings me up before I get there, that could be you. Like, so it's, what I don't want to see is that 2 years from now, you have a great amount of products, but I've been there running around like crazy because I am just reacting to everything and not setting the right tone, where it's like having them think about the 2-week outlook. Who can they call? And honestly, one of the biggest things I do is, hey, you know what? This is who we're going to have next week, dude. Boom, boom, boom. And then I leave that meeting, and I then text every one of those people I just told them to text. Because what I want them to do is call them and text them and go, oh no, John already talked to me. Shit, I need to be quicker than that. What I just did, I need to be faster. Because he's got a million things, and he already texted and called all of them. Or I CC'd them on an email. Like, I CC a lot because I want them to be engaged in that conversation, and I want the person on the other end to know that person, Ryan or whoever it is, fits in, meaning I'm going to feed enough options where it's like, hey, did you get that email? And I'm like, we just solved that. He goes, I already emailed them. Like, you're giving them the outlets, but if you don't, then it's like, all right, well, if I had CC'd you on that with the designer, like, I love the fact that my assistant super is dealing with my interior designer on so many things that I never asked him to do, where it's like, hey, light placement, I need to get these done. I'm like, punch out these 2 rooms. He communicates with her, I'm on a group text, and it's with him, our stone supplier, and our designer about what finish the countertop's going to be in a bathroom. And I'm like, I'm driving home with no hands on the wheel going, hallelujah. Like, it's happening. Yeah. So it's giving them the outlet, like, not just going, hey, I'm going to protect my connection with that interior designer. And you have this whole thing where you have to keep stuff on a leash, where no, that's my contact. You haven't earned the time to deal with that designer yet. No, let's build the team up. Let's get you the opportunity to do that, and give them every resource. Like I said, is having all the shop drawings, having all those stuff dialed in, because at a certain point, like I said before, I think you can take opportunity that could be there and lose it because of dysfunction. And that it's like having a really dirty job site and bringing in a really clean sub, and they go, well, you know what? I usually do this, but I don't have to. So now guess what? Now no one cleans. So if you have someone who's got 20 years, let's say 5 years experience as being a super, and you want to make them a PM, and you bring them into a crappy site that's not organized, that's like studs are all over the place, guess what? That's how they think it's going to have to run forever.
Yeah. Yeah. I think his experience with the larger builder that I was mentioning before up in the mountains also, they're a little more, I don't know if you'd call them corporate, but I think his experience with them and some of the systems and things that he learned with them can also help translate over even into, potentially what we do.
Absolutely.
One also awesome thing that he's fluent in Spanish. So it's another plus.
Yeah.
So he can sing to you in Spanish.
He can sing to me in Spanish. No, I it's a good opportunity. That's why I texted John to see if he had any information and give me any advice. I didn't know I was going to get all three of you.
Bonus, Luke.
Is it cool if we use this as a podcast?
100%.
Are you worried about salary?
If it's good content, good enough to get on the podcast, I mean.
Now, I guess one of the things we didn't talk about was salary.
That was one thing I wanted to mention was something that could be productive to the people, if people are listening to this, what salary and milestones, are there milestones and things that you set for, PMs or supers, if they've got to have something to, aspire to potentially make more and get, all that sort of stuff. Do you guys have any little nuggets on that?
I mean, I think salary is going to be depending on, kind of competitive depending on where you are. But something that we've recently started talking about and implementing is a bonus structure on the PM side, and it's something that it's in its infancy, but I think that's where there has to be some skin in the game, and I don't know if it's something that's right off the bat. And I know John, like we've talked about it too. It's as you start developing. He gets up to speed with what you're doing, and he starts being able to bring on, handle more work, setting those milestones. I think having touch points, whether it's a formal review or whatever, it's like, I know, John, you kind of fight me on it, but it's like, I think you should have a pulse on what's going on constantly. But I do think having that, every 6 months, sit down for an hour and have like a formal review, like get the, talk about the, the specifics. How are they doing in the responsibilities and duties that you've kind of outlined? How do they think they're doing, and how do you think they're doing, and do they differ? Like, where do they think they can improve, and where do you think he can improve? And if they differ, then you need to talk about it. That's the one thing that we changed this year, is where it's like I send out a sheet where the guys fill out like how they think they're doing.
Is it a survey?
It is a survey.
Just joking.
But it's they fill it out, and then I fill it out on my end, and we sit down and we talk about it. And it's, to be honest, most of the time we're dead on. It's like, hey, I think I can improve my communication time, and I'm like, that's what I thought you could improve on. But having that formal sit down,
that must be an awesome meeting.
It is, John.
Like, guess what? We aligned on everything you need to improve on. Good stuff. High five. Let's go.
It's more in depth.
Nick, are you doing those meetings, or are you at the point where you're having managers do those meetings as well?
I'm doing those meetings.
All right.
But it's I believe it's important, and it's.
Do you wish you had done it differently if you had hired less people at once, where you could have had a deeper pulse on it?
But this is what I argue. This is where I disagree with you. I don't feel like I don't have a pulse on it. But having that sit down, first off, we structure like the raises, the random times of the year that raises are given. It's like now there's some structure to it, so I can plan for it. So it's not a matter of like, oh shit, like someone doesn't like what they're doing, I got to give them a raise. It's, hey, like we sit down every 6 months, and this is when we talk about pay increases.
No, I guess maybe I asked the wrong way. Or was
Can I ask how many employees you have, Nick?
I think 16.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe next year, Luke, you can jump up to that level. Just grab one this year. Grab a cool 16 next year.
Man.
No, I guess my question was...
like
7 years.
It's like 15 too many.
Right? No, I guess my point was, do you wish at a time during that growth phase that if it wasn't such these big incremental jumps that... Maybe I did say it that way, that you could have had a closer pulse on it where it's not like you're reacting to a lot of these things that happen.
But I still would argue.
My point
I'm not reacting to them.
I guess what you don't know. Is my point is like, how do you figure out that without having to set a set meeting, that incrementally, if they make massive leaps throughout the year, that you have a gauge on it? You know, like one of the guys.
Sure, I'm not saying that they can't. Someone can't get a pay increase because if they're making massive leaps. Oh no, we only do it that time of year. Like that's not what I'm saying. But the formal sit down, in my opinion, and the feedback that I get is needed. Everyone wants it. Everyone wants to have the opportunity to sit down for an hour and just chat back and forth, figure out how they can improve. What can we improve? It's not about them. It's about us. It's what myself and they can do to help their growth. It's talking about growth. We talk about goals. We talk about their goals professionally in their career. We talk about goals in their life. You know, in setting and jotting those notes down. So in 6 months we can pull that sheet out and we can talk about like, hey, one of your goals was to buy a house this year. How are you doing on that? Like you talked about, like helping put an addition on one of the guys' homes. It's like just having all of that stuff, and we just chat back and forth, and having something that we can reflect back to has been helpful. And
I guess that doesn't feel intimate to me.
I don't know why, but
I guess I question: do you wish it was more intimate if it would stayed small, like in the beginning when it was you, Chris, and the other kid? Like
you're asking me a question that
people, but it was if it had stayed to a point where it was more intimate, do you ever wish it was?
But I continue to disagree. I don't think it's not intimate.
I think it's a great way to be more intentional and almost be proactively intimate by individually seeking out each one of those employees on a 6 month time frame. Man, with 15, 16 employees, that happens more often than you think, right?
But even with 4 employees, it's still like your time goes by so quickly. Where it's like if you're not carving out time intentionally, you're gonna do your best to keep a pulse on it. But I don't believe that you're. I just think time flies by. Where it's like you got to have that sit down. You got to set stuff aside, sit down. How's things going? It's not this structured meeting where it's like we're only going to talk about this and this is how all that stuff's on the paper,
so
but
it's not like Office Space.
No, it's more it's a conversation. It's just an opportunity where we can both figure out like, hey, what are we both good at and what are we both sucking at and how do we help each other there?
Did you ever have a review when you had your job?
Yeah.
Were you nervous going into the review?
Yep.
Yeah. Was it a cool environment for you to be in to openly voice your opinions about how you feel about your boss and your environment?
No, but it was structured different.
Oh, of course it was. I'm just trying to figure out that, I've been down that road over the years of having it like that. And again, I don't want to be down a rabbit hole where it's you versus me again, Nick. I'm just saying all these things are written a certain way for certain people to have it. And you're amazingly creative about how you operate your business and how you execute a certain amount of unbelievable work and create design. Why does it have to be that you follow along in footsteps when it comes to running a business and how you have these employee touches where imagine if you were just as creative with that end of it as well. And it wasn't like, well, it's 6 months. I guess this is where I get hung up on it.
Get a bounce house.
Yeah, you know, a dunk tank for Nick. Maybe
Invite
head
somebody to
gets
the
messed up.
trampoline park for an afternoon.
Because John, honestly, it's easier if I just schedule it. Where it's like if I'm just gonna randomly do it, then
If
it's
it was easy for you to do all these projects.
But it's not about that. The guys. It's not fair to the guys. Where it's like shit. Like I haven't sat down with him in 6 months. I got to schedule. Like I got to make a point to do it because that's the feedback that I've got. That's the feedback. Hey, it's like hey, we haven't sat down. Like I'd really. I feel like it's been 6 months.
So the priority isn't them.
Bumper cars.
What do you mean the priority isn't them?
That it gets lost in the priority of everything else that happens in the day to day. I guess that's what I'm getting at, Luke. Is that it's the same as like I joke about my wife in 15 years is like we have kids, we have everything else, but she's still a priority. Like you still go to dinner. Your first meeting with them is like to go to dinner as a couple. It's awesome. What I would worry about is in 5 years that gets lost. Like I love that companies keep those little ethos, those little things that are kind of ironic.
So
and
what's something that you've done to keep that or to try and do that yourself?
It's not just staying small and maybe I'm taking on more than I need to on a daily basis. It's just really being close to what's happening. Like every time I have a meeting, whether I'm running it or someone else is running it, having a debrief with them, super casual, nothing on the books. It's just like, hey, what would you have had me say differently at that meeting? And, vice versa. Just kind of while you're walking back to the truck, sit in the tailgate and making that moment. Yes, I'm making moments for my architects, my clients, my designers, the plumber, the mason, all that stuff. But am I making time or am I just taking advantage of someone else's time as an employee under like that there's a duty with them that they have to do a certain amount of things for me because I give them a salary, I give them a truck, I give them a phone and a laptop. And I never want to take advantage of that because I have been taken advantage of over the years. And that stupid 6-month meeting is absolute bullshit and irrelevant to me. And I don't ever want to have that for any of my people. And if they want that, then maybe they're not the right fit for the company. The same way I would judge certain clients, architects, and stuff like that you won't bend for that situation, then why would I bend for this part of it? And this is just as crucial for the growth of myself and my company and the family we're trying to create to try and make this happen. So I want to take these little moments, and if I'm late for another meeting, then that's fine, but I want that moment with whether it's Ben, whether it's Trevor, whether it's John, whoever it is, so that way I'm not blindsided. And I've been doing this for a long time, and I got blindsided by Rob Isbell 15 years ago when he left because he walked into my office, closed my door at BGB and was like, hey, I got to leave. And I'm like, but I put 4 years into us. Like, what do you mean you got to leave? Like, why isn't there a warning? Like, I got to counter. I got to do whatever. And he's like, it came down to the fact that we didn't offer health insurance. That was above my pay grade at the time, but I had no idea. And that's why he left. So I was like, all right, now I need to make sure that I have a better pulse on what was happening, because reality was I thought I had a great pulse and I had no idea. Like, it just, to your point, Nick, it gets lost. But I was like, all right, I'm chasing work like crazy. I'm doing all this. I'm doing pre-con. I'm signing contracts. But am I checking in at the same amount, the same pace with the people that make it all happen? That's all I'm trying to say. So when you do this, is just trying to make the time where when things get crazy and you're upside down, it's the same like my kids in youth hockey, and they're losing 2-0 in the second period, and everyone's stressing out. I want to be like, guys, this game's awesome. I know you're not watching it because you're playing it, but this is awesome. This is like a cool experience. Have fun with it and thrive off it. Don't be like super stressed out. And I find that that's what happens at those 6 months to a year that you've been building up this big thing. It's like, oh, well, you know what? I got another 2 months, then I get that review. Shit, it's going to be good. It's going to be good, son. And then you get there and someone's let down, or maybe it rolls right, but you're rolling the dice, 15 times a year with all these different people. And then if it's the same time of year, then everyone's buzzing. And what'd you get? I got this bump, and it's like, dude, what are we creating? And for me, and I love the fact that we all have different approaches. It's just food for thought, Luke. Now don't go, you know what? We're actually going a different direction.
I feel like I jumped into something.
I was going to say, we're starting to derail from Luke's question here, but Luke, how do you feel about your situation at this point?
What do you
Like,
mean?
do you feel as though you're gonna make you can make a decision and you're comfortable in it?
I do.
That's good.
Yeah. No. Everything you guys have said has been good. I think it just kind of confirmed, even just having the fear or slash anxiety about bringing someone on, but not being 100% prepared for them to come on and put
Yeah.
them on the job and hit the ground running right when they come. It's okay to kind of, I'll take, like Johnny, what you said, having a bit of process before they come, maybe being a couple of days, a couple of weeks ahead of them, having those ready for them, I think is a really good idea. But also being okay with developing that position, kind of as you go, learn as you go. Tyler,
And
like you said,
I'd set up
Yeah.
little things like for yourself that maybe in a year you have a company truck lined up for them.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Whatever it is that try and think of what you would want as a company as well as what that employee would want, and just like automatically do it. Like one of my guys, I knew he needed to get out of his Sprinter van. And I
Wouldn't
was
it
like,
be more intimate if he just like got a truck randomly, not
That's what I did.
in a structured year?
Yeah, but that's what I did. Like John, I knew he needed to get out of it, so I
every
gave him
6
my
months
truck.
he gets a truck. Actually,
Yeah, new tires, whatever.
New
It could be his
tires.
bonus that week. It's just, but knowing that, because you have to forecast that as an owner, that if it wants to happen, then you have to then forecast it yourself.
Yeah.
So like I had to do that. Like we have a new guy coming on board. We're gonna do a truck. So like it's gonna be like musical chairs. I get a truck. Ben gets my truck. New guy gets Ben's truck. So I want to have an idea of what that's gonna cost and buy them all in the company's name and understand what that debt is. And as an employee, that if you're gonna run 4 jobs, I guess you got a tidal wave coming. I just want to be ahead of it if I'm you. It's like
totally. That's why I am talking to you on November 17th.
I mean, it's a good comfort to have that you have that much
Yeah.
revenue coming in. So you have the luxury of being able to do this and
Yeah.
honestly figure out who the next person's going to be. If it's going to be, a controller, like you have to gauge if this person's great at making selections with you.
Yeah.
Because if a PM would, if they're not, then have them do that and have a project coordinator run the 5 jobs, That
Yeah.
way selections get made, but having kind of softballs out there, see if they feel them. If they keep fumbling them, then, maybe you need to, put a site super as well as having them stay as assistant PM status. I mean, I don't know. You get me? Like, I guess it's kind of organic where it's not just a set in stone and just really feeling out their responsibilities. And I do think that having a list that, to Tyler's point, yeah, you can give this and that, but at a certain point, whether you're at that honeymoon stage, I like to give people that they've been really crushing 10 tasks a day. Then you know what? For the next 2 weeks, I'm going to give them 20 tasks a day and see how they react. Maybe it's during that frame stage where it's not so bad, but I want to understand that can they get to 15 a day? Or is this their limit? Because that's your job as an owner to figure out where their limits are, not just kind of keep slowly giving them one thing at a time for the next 15 years.
Yep.
That's how I do it.
No, I get it. That's good.
You almost want to break them.
Yeah.
That way you know what it's going to look like. See how they react. Break them a little bit, see if they shut down or see if they fight back, on the job.
What are you, a horse trainer now?
I'm just saying.
So you do
I've done it to
you do it like
everybody.
a wild stallion.
I remember I told Mike Fiat, I'm like, I'm going to make the next month totally uncomfortable. You're going to love me 2 months from now.
What are some practical things? Like, what do you mean when you say I'm going to break them? What have you done? Like, what are some things that you've done?
It's you want to understand what their stress level is. Like, honestly, if this kid's finishing on a project right now, I would go visit that. It's tough to do, but just to, don't wear your gear, but to see how the job site's running while he's there, and it's just to see the chaos or if it's totally dialed in, blah, blah. But no, I mean, really, you want to be able to really unload a lot more of your stuff for like a 2-week period.
Yeah.
And just have a list of what you're checking in on and be like, hey, did this get done? Like almost hypercycle a little bit just to see how they react. And if it's going to be that environment, let's say it's going to be a client that they in 2 years from now, they're going to get that is a hypercycle client. You need to know what you're going to have to look out for then. The first year of you employing somebody is you feeling them out, testing the waters, seeing where they can and can't go and where they're comfortable and uncomfortable. Basically finding their weaknesses so that way you know where to cover come year 2 and help them grow.
Yeah.
Not compensate, but help them grow. So I don't have an exact example of it, but it's, whether it's putting a schedule together, like I put my schedules together to have framing as every drop, like first floor, structurals, second floor deck. It's broken out to be so easy that if they can't pick that up while calling plumbing, electrical, and HVAC for bids, and figuring out what color roof we're going to have and having samples on site, you get me? Like, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is pulling that together and like, what do you think about water and sewer? Should that go in now and just seeing where they see things going, not always you dictating, because that is the easier route.
Yeah, it is. Relinquishing some control.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're all set. You're good to
Thanks,
go.
guys.
Just learn some Spanish.
I don't need to.
Oh.
And don't forget buying gear. Like the last kid was an XL. I only had large stuff. So it was like he worked for us for 3 weeks, so to a month, and I didn't have any gear for him.
No, that's good.
It's just foolish stuff where you're like, we only hire larges. And you're an XL. So.
I'm sorry you can't work for us.
That or
You're
lose
not-
weight.
You're not a large.
You have to shed some LBs.
Well, Luke, appreciate you hopping on unexpectedly with all of us.
I know. I thought it was going to be a little 15-minute phone call.
Well, now you're
John,
an hour
I appreciate it. Thank you.
and 10 minutes
anytime.
longer.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Of course, man.
Anytime.
Yep.
Be well.
We'll see you.
That is our second bonus episode. Actually, no, we've definitely done more than 2 bonus episodes, but you guys liked them on our reviews. John said there was hundreds of reviews for the bonus episode.
I said
So
a bunch.
If you get, I think you said hundreds. If you guys keep up the reviews and get us over 800 on iTunes, we'll definitely keep this up. It's I like drilling into a single question because that 15-minute phone call was an hour and a half. So
That's true. Hopefully,
And people don't know they're getting on with us.
no,
Hopefully
we do
he's
ask
not
their
gonna
permission. I was like, we should definitely ask his permission in the middle of that.
Well, the other one, we didn't give anybody's information out. So.
Oh, no, yes,
he
you
was just
did.
bonus. He was bonus Frank. That was it.
Okay. Yeah, that's true.
We
All
never
right.
gave out their IG or.
Very good. All right, guys. We'll see you next week.